Interfaith leaders need three different types of knowledge in order to be effective. We've discussed the value of appreciative knowledge, how it impacts our attitudes and relationships with people who orient around religion differently. We've also seen some highlights of the extensive history of interfaith cooperation. That history has paved the way for the robust interfaith movement that is happening across the country today. The third piece of the interfaith leadership knowledge base is much more personal. When someone begins to identify as an interfaith leader, it is important that he or she understand what from their own religious or ethical tradition calls them to do this work. Interfaith leaders do this by developing an explicit ethic or theology of interfaith cooperation. This is the third piece of the knowledge base of interfaith leadership.
An ethic or theology of interfaith cooperation draws from key sources within one's religious or ethical tradition, and interprets them in a way that articulates the need for and worthiness of positive relationships with people of other worldviews. One can develop this personal ethic through sources like central texts, important figures, historical moments, traditions or customs, and writing or art from one's religious tradition. By drawing on these sources, interfaith leaders can create a coherent narrative that explains how their religious identity inspires interfaith cooperation. Your own ethic of interfaith cooperation demonstrates the essential role your religious or non-religious formation can play in your interfaith leadership. By developing such an ethic or theology, you can reap two benefits. The first is that if you are a person who identifies with a particular tradition, such as Christianity, Buddhism, or secular humanism, you will want to be able to articulate how your work as an interfaith leader is not in opposition to your tradition, but actually expresses a central value of that tradition. Unfortunately, people who seek out positive relationships with other religious communities are sometimes thought to have a weaker commitment to their own tradition. A robust ethic or theology of interfaith cooperation will help you answer those misguided assumptions by demonstrating how being an interfaith leader is not just about advancing civic virtues, but also fully living into your identity as a Jew, a Baha'i, an atheist, etc.
The second benefit is that developing an ethic or theology of interfaith cooperation helps interfaith leaders motivate others who, likewise, identify with a particular religious tradition. By proudly claiming your particular religious or non-religious identity, claiming the mantle interfaith leader, and deftly articulating how the latter flows organically from the former, you give implicit permission to others to do the same.
So it goes without saying that different religious, philosophical, and ethical traditions have different doctrines, different beliefs at their core. Those same religious, ethical, and philosophical traditions have important resources that inspire their adherents to build positive relationships with people who are different. This is complicated, of course. In this lesson, we're going to show you several people who are beginning to develop their own ethic or theology of interfaith cooperation, which is to say, they're looking deep in their own traditions and systems for resources that help them develop a narrative of why they should partner with people who have different beliefs and doctrines. Here are some of the ways that I developed this myself as a Muslim interfaith leader. The central text in Islam is, of course, the Holy Quran, and there are beautiful verses in the Holy Quran that speak to how important difference and diversity is. For example, in Surah 49, we are told that God made us different nations and tribes that we may come to know one another. There are also key moments in the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of God be upon him, in his life that highlight the importance of interfaith cooperation. For example, two of the key figures who recognized the mark of Muhammad's prophethood were Christian, Bahira and Waraka. An important protector of the Prophet Muhammad during the early days of his mission in Mecca was a pagan, Abu Talib. This scriptural reference from the Holy Quran, these moments from the Prophet Muhammad's life, these serve as important threads in my own tapestry of a theology of interfaith cooperation. Developing this is no easy feat, but by showing you other people who are on this journey, we hope that we can help you do it for yourself.